Hamilton's private suite on the 13th floor of Easton Memorial felt more like a fortified vault than an IQ room. Layers of glass, biometric locks, and a semicircle of security guards who needed special clearance just to lean against the wallpaper. The ventilator's cadence set a grim metronome for the battle lines forming around the bed. Chelsea Valebill's first publicly acknowledged wife, austere in navy silk, occupied the left armchair as though it were a throne. Naomi Hunter's second spouse, younger, camera-savvy, wrapped in couture griefist at the foot of the bed rehearsing statements for whichever network paid first. Donnie Rice, longtime confidant, on-again, off-again fiancé, the only one who had stayed through the stints of chemo, stood nearest the monitors, fingers curled tight around the rail. Equal parts sentinel and supplicant. For weeks they had maintained an uneasy ceasefire, united by the faint hope that Bill might blink himself awake and tell them whose signature he wanted on the next round of documents. Then, on a rain-soaked Tuesday barely past dawn, a lab report slipped through the cracks and turned hope into open warfare. The hospital's transfusion unit had flagged Bill's chart. A rare H-null phenotype required specially matched donors, and a routine crossmatch against staff samples had returned an impossible statistic perfect compatibility from a 26-year-old nurse named Adrienne Cole. Further analysis, ordered quietly, revealed a genetic overlap too high for coincidence. Within hours, a confirmatory DNA panel screamed the truth everyone else had missed. Adrian was Bill Hamilton's biological son. The revelation detonated inside the hospital like gas in a locked cellar. Chelsea was the first to weaponize it, summoning her lawyer by text before the ink dried on the result, instructing him to petition for an emergency injunction that would seal all further records under marital privilege. Naomi countered by live-streaming a tearful monologue from the corridor, insisting the public had a right to transparency when one of America's great dynastic fortunes faced sudden succession turmoil. Donnie, stunned, did what she always did, looked for the human being behind the headline. She found Adrian in the staff lounge, hands still trembling from drawing Bill's morning labs, and told him point-blank what the charts meant. He didn't faint. He didn't deny. He simply stared at the floor and whispered that his mother, deceased 5 years, had once described this summer romance with a traveling investor who smelled of cedar and futures. The description fit Bill like a monogram. Adrian's shock gave way to conflict, loyalty to a patient versus the tidal pull of newfound blood. By noon, the board of Hamilton International convened an emergency teleconference. Chelsea asserted that as Bill's only legitimate spouse of record, she would exercise power of attorney, freeze corporate voting shares, and bar any unverified heir from claiming dividends. Naomi produced her own notarized POA dated 2 years later, appointing her sole medical and financial proxy should Bill become incapacitated. Donnie unveiled yet another document, a durable healthcare directive signed 6 months ago at Bill's last remission milestone, naming her primary agent for end-of-life decisions, the hospital's ethics committee. Nearly imploded trying to reconcile 3 conflicting orders, each stamped with Bill's looping signature. Into that mire strode Adrian, still in scrubs, with a DNA report bearing the hospital's gold seal. Under state law, the child, legitimate or not, outranked all spouses in next-of-kin hierarchy if paternity was uncontested. It wasn't just a medical bombshell. It was an estate-shattering nuke. Reporters scented blood. Camera crews camped outside the lobby. Drones buzzed the heliport. Livestream commentators christened the fiasco heir apparent. Stock analysts projected a potential split of Hamilton International, speculating which division would land with which rival claimant. Social feeds ignited with hashtags Nurseson, Widow Wars, Dynasty Down. Adrian's co-workers rated his social profiles. Blurry prom pictures went viral. A college transcript from community nursing school was parsed like Holy Writ. Chelsea hired a crisis management firm that flashed cease and desist letters to anyone repeating unverified rumors. Naomi tweeted cryptic Bible verses about swords and mothers, which tabloids spun into pregnancy gossip. Donnie stayed offline, camping at Bill's bedside, reminding every orderly within earshot that whatever happened, the man on the ventilator was still their patient. Legal maneuvering intensified. Chelsea's attorneys moved to strike the DNA evidence as improperly obtained, claiming no court order authorized genetic testing. Naomi's team filed a competing motion labeling Adrian an interested medical technician whose involvement breached fiduciary ethics, thus invalidating the sample chain of custody. Donnie's counsel pro bono but ruthless argued that state precedent allowed any emergent heir to assert guardianship when the principal's prognosis was imminently fatal, a phrase none of the cardiology notes dared to erase. While judges scheduled emergency hearings, the hospital groaned under subpoenas, swipe card logs, CCTV footage, employee rosters going back a decade. Administrators feared HIPAA violations would bring federal auditors. Donors threatened to withdraw endowments. Through the chaos, Adrian kept working 12-hour shifts, monitoring other patients while paparazzi snapped him through tinted glass. He avoided Bill's room except when duty required, but on the third night to 37 a.m., monitors beeping Steadicalcia cornered him in the supply corridor. Her proposition was ice on steel. Sign a waiver surrendering all inheritance rights in exchange for $8 million taxed and wired offshore, plus an NDA thicker than a New York phone book. Her logic, Bill's final will, updated last spring. Split the estate equally between my cherished partners Chelsea and Naomi and left Donnie a trust for services rendered. There was no clause for unknown heirs. Adrian's court recognition would trigger intestate provisions voiding large swaths of the document, forcing probate snarls lasting years, tanking the fortune. Adrian refused, voice cracking but resolute. Chelsea's smile froze. She thanked him for his time. By dawn, a gossip site leaked anonymous allegations that Adrian had falsified credentials and endangered patients. Naomi struck next, softer but more insidious. She invited Adrian onto her streaming channel, millions of followers, slick production framing it as a brave conversation about identity and forgiveness. She offered mentorship, media training, a luxury condo. She hinted at joint charity ventures. Imagine us redefining Hamilton philanthropy, mother and son. Adrian listened, half tempted by the glamour. But Donnie slipped him a dossier afterward. Naomi's last 3 mentee influencers sued her for unpaid royalties. The shine dulled. By week's end, the probate judge combined motions into a single monster hearing. Attorneys overflowed the courtroom. News anchors broadcast live from the courthouse steps. DNA chain of custody objections evaporated when the hospital's lab director under oath testified protocols had been followed precisely because Adrian might be a relation. The judge admitted the test, granted temporary heir status, and scheduled a guardianship showdown for 48 hours later. Chelsea's cheeks blanched. Naomi tightened her jaw. Donnie squeezed Adrian's shoulder like kin. Outside, markets hiccuped. Hamilton International lost 4% of its value in a single trading session. Back at Easton Memorial, Bill's vitals dipped into arrhythmia. Cardiologists recommended a ventricular assist upgrade, but that required consent from the legal guardian, now contested between for people, Chelsea by senior marriage, Naomi by latest POA, Donnie by healthcare directive, and Adrian by filial priority. The ethics board convened an emergency midnight ballot. In deadlock, they punted to Judge Lang, who ruled the decision must be unanimous or the hospital could only provide comfort care. The quarrel shifted from inheritance to life support. Chelsea argued aggressive treatment would honor Bill's fighting spirit, secretly hoping prolonged coma delayed estate division. Naomi agreed in camera, at least claiming love. Donnie objected. The VAD surgery risked catastrophic stroke. Bill had told her privately he feared becoming a statue kept alive by wires. Adrian studied the records, listened to surgeons, and sided with Donnie. Stalemate. No surgery. Overnight, Bill's blood pressure cratered. Nurses titrated pressors. Respiratory therapists suctioned foam. Alarms shrilled like car horns. Chelsea accused Donnie of murder by neglect. Donnie accused Chelsea of torture by prolongation. Naomi spun both accusations into an Instagram reel that racked up 10 million views in 6 hours. Adrian ignored the noise, leaned over the bed, whispered that he was here, that he had found him, that whatever came next would not erase the miracle of flesh meeting blood. Bill's eyelids flickered. For one miraculous moment, his hand squeezed Adrian's. EKG lines tremored. A single tear slid from the old man's eye. Then everything stopped. A flat line so pure the monitors couldn't lie. Time of death, 4:16 a.m. Silence swallowed the room before litigation swallowed the silence. Within 5 minutes, Chelsea demanded the body released to her for traditional Hamilton rites. Naomi produced funeral plans already drafted by celebrity event planners. Donnie invoked the advance directive. Cremation, small ceremony, ashes scattered over the vineyard where Bill proposed to her last fall. Adrian claimed paternal right to decide, quoting statute numbers he'd memorized between shifts. The hospital refused to move the corpse until the county medical examiner, and the judge issued guidance. For 2 days, Bill remained in cooling storage while lawyers filed emergency motions. The judge's compromise, a neutral mortuary, a private cremation, half the ashes to Hamilton Estate under Chelsea's stewardship, half to a sealed urn entrusted to Adrian. That left Naomi nothing tangible. She vowed to sue for the urn. The will reading unfolded in the library at Hawthorne House, hook walls and swirls of dust in morning sun. Nicole Tranth family's steely counsel unchained a bombshell of her own. A sealed envelope Bill had deposited with her months earlier labeled event of additional heirs. Inside lay a handwritten codicil, properly witnessed, acknowledging the possibility of unknown progeny and stipulating that any biological child verified by medical science shall inherit a controlling 34% block of voting. Shares in Hamilton International, held in trust until the child reaches 30. Those shares were to be carved equally from Chelsea's, Naomi's, and Donnie's allocations. Gasps slapped the ceiling. Chelsea shouted forgery. Naomi sobbed theatrically. Donnie nodded once, as though pieces finally fit. Adrian sat fixed, jaw loose, suddenly thrust from nurse to power broker of a multi-billion-dollar empire. The next weeks blurred into trench warfare. Forensic handwriting experts squared off. Financial auditors scoured every ledger. Algorithms tracked stock manipulation as rivals shorted Hamilton International, expecting collapse. Chelsea's PR machine painted Adrian as an opportunistic imposter. Naomi staged a charity gala with a hologram of Bill praising her devotion. Donnie released Bill's recorded message from a poster mission drive where he thanked Adrian. "Wherever you are, one day I hope we meet." The clip scorched through the internet, erasing much of the doubt. Court finally convened for the validity trial. On day 3, Chelsea's star witness, an art forger specializing in ink dating, cracked under cross-examination, admitting he'd been offered cash to identify anomalies. On day 5, Naomi's attorneys presented a prenup clause claiming 60% of any increase in Bill's net worth after marriage. But Donnie's side revealed an amendment nullifying that clause if Naomi engaged in public disparagement, which her own social feeds plainly showed. Mid-cross, Naomi fainted. Tabloids replayed the collapse in slow motion set to pop ballads. The judge was unmoved. Verdict: the codicil stood, the shares transferred, Adrian recognized as legitimate heir with full rights. The estate's balance pivoted overnight. Stock circuit investors bet on new blood. Chelsea retreated to a coastal villa, launching podcasts on legacy management after betrayal. Naomi entered reality TV, branding herself the Silicon Widow, monetizing heartbreak through sponsorships. Donnie accepted CEO of the Hamilton Foundation, steering philanthropic billions into rural clinics, starting with the one where Adrian's mother once worked night shift. Adrian finished his rotation at Easton Memorial, then joined the foundation's health equity program, installing telemedicine hubs in counties the Hamilton Empire had long neglected. On the first anniversary of Bill's passing, a small group gathered at the vineyard Donnie had fought for. Donnie, Adrian, a scattering of board members, and Nicole. Wine bent the vines, sunset painted rows of grapes gold. They opened the urn, let half of what remained of Bill ride the breeze, watched ash fall among soil he'd once promised would outlive them all. Adrian spoke last. No speeches, just a promise to do better than the generation before. Donnie slipped the old man's signet ring onto Adrian's finger. It fit neither too tight nor too loose. As evening folded into dark, the feud that had consumed headlines receded into history. leaving in its place a battered but breathing dynasty rebuilt not on the titles of wives or the wrangling of lovers, but on the unshakable fact of blood discovering itself against impossible odds. Madison Clark moved through downtown Halcyon in late afternoon haze, eyes hidden behind medical-grade sunglasses that did little to mask the fatigue spider webbing across her cheeks. The defamation lawsuit filed by Olivia Beckett, her most trusting patient, that reached closing arguments, and every breath Madison took felt pinned beneath the weight of cross-examinations replaying on courthouse monitors. Olivia claimed Madison botched a neurostim implant, leaving her with neuropathic storms no medication could calm. Madison countered that Olivia ignored post-op protocols, self-adjusted dosages, and then, desperate for a scapegoat, conjured negligence where there was only bad luck. The case boiled down to a he said, she said tango of medical records, but the true dagger came from Chelsea Vale, paparazzi queen disguised as grieving widow, who a week earlier captured Madison in a rain-slick alley behind Morgan Pharmacy exchanging cash for a vial of propofol-controlled black market. Undeniably illegal given Madison's suspended hospital privileges. That single high-definition photo Madison's gloved hand pocketing the milky anesthetic tabloids before breakfast and detonated reasonable doubt. Olivia's attorneys spiked their closing with the image, arguing it proved Madison would cut corners with outlaw drugs rather than accept professional censure. And if she'd break one law, why not MIS calibrate a stim pulse that crippled a patient? The jury took the bait. As they filed to deliberate, reporters swarmed the courthouse steps, microphones jabbing skyward, hashtags MedMadness and Propofol Doctor trending worldwide within hours. While jury deliberation stretched into its second day, Halcyon PD issued an Amber Alert. A 6-year-old girl named Ellie Jensen disappeared from a playground 4 blocks from the courthouse. Surveillance footage showed her last moments chasing bubbles near a silver hatchback idling at the curb. Witnesses described a woman in medical scrubs coaxing Ellie toward the vehicle with promises of a puppy. The press pounced, stitching the kidnap to courtroom drama with ghoulish relish. Madison wore scrubs every day beneath her trench coat. She drove a silver hatchback. Her pharmacy photo already painted her as a physician and moored from ethics. By nightfall, police cruisers parked outside Madison's brownstone, blue lights refracting off broken sleep. Detective Ezra Nolan knocked just after midnight, voice carved from concrete. Dr. Clark, we need to ask where you were between 3:10 and 3:40 p.m. Madison, still in suit trousers from court, recounted her timeline. Lunch with defense counsel. A stop at Whitman's Copy Center for closing argument exhibits, and an hour in the courthouse atrium revising notes surrounded by dozens of people and security cameras. Nolan listened, expression unreadable, then produced a warrant to search Madison's vehicle. The hatchback revealed nothing: no child hair, no stray laces, no fast food wrappers ironical about the missing vial of propofol never surfaced either, and tabloids erupted again, speculating Madison sedated Ellie to stage some twisted demonstration of innocence lost, guilt projected. Chelsea, chasing clicks, live-streamed commentary from the courthouse lawn, quoting anonymous sources who linked Madison to a private infertility clinic Ellie's mother once consulted. The connection turned headline gold. Olivia's legal team filed a motion to enter the kidnapping coverage into evidence, alleging pattern of reckless endangerment. The judge, already exhausted, sealed deliberations but could not halt public opinion. Crowds gathered outside waving homemade placards. First do nitrogen monoxide harm splashed in red. Where is Ellie? Beneath cartoon stethoscopes. Effigies of Madison dangled in mock surgical gowns. Sponsors pulled grants from Madison's stalled research startup. Her bank froze a pending line of credit. Her defense fund hemorrhaged donors. Inside the jury room, 12 citizens absorbed nightly news between sessions despite sequestration guidelines. Bailiff couldn't confiscate every smuggled Fanine subconscious bias seeped into verdict math. Detective Nolan widened the dragnet. Traffic cams captured the hatchback's route, but timestamps exonerated Madison. Her car exited courthouse parking at 4:05 p.m., 25 minutes after Ellie vanished. Yet media ignored the nuance, mesmerized by a new leak. Hospital logs revealed Madison once administered propofol in pediatric trials, suggesting familiarity with sedating children. Meanwhile, Olivia Beckett collapsed on morning talk shows, claiming phantom shots ravaged her legs whenever Madison's name aired, tears glistening under studio lights. Donation sites for Olivia's rehabilitation journey eclipsed 6 figures. Day 4 of deliberations, word trickled that the jury stood 11-1 favoring negligence. The lone holdout demanded concrete proof that Madison activated the stim's lethal burst. Others believed the propofol photo sufficed. Across town, a janitor in a shuttered textile factory discovered a utility closet chain from outside. Inside lay Ali Jensen, disoriented but alive, clutching a stuffed koala. Toxicology later showed trace midazolam in their hospital sedative, nothing linked to propofol. Security footage from the factory revealed the abductor, a woman with auburn pixie cut and a noticeable limp, no resemblance to Madison. She drove a black panel van. License plates traced to a temp nurse fired months back for narcotics theft. Andrea Pike. The saga pivoted overnight. Chiron's flipped from Doctor of Darkness to Midnight Nurse Monster. Police nabbed Pike at a motel, cooled eyes wide, pupils pinpoints of benzos. Under interrogation, she confessed to snatching Ellie for ransom. Madison's scandal offered perfect smokescreen. Pike even admitted forging a pharmacy ID badge and parking near the courthouse, knowing press frenzy would misdirect suspicion. Detective Nolan exhaled great disbelief, passed the confession to the DA, and phoned Madison's counsel with a 2-sentence exoneration. Dr. Clark is not a suspect. Release her from surveillance. The damage, however, had metastasized. Jury foreman watched the Pike arrest on a cafeteria TV and requested emergency instruction. The judge reminded them to isolate facts of negligence from crimes unrelated, but the seed of doubt sprouted inversely. If media framed Madison for kidnap without evidence, maybe malpractice claims were inflated too. On deliberation day 6, the jury returned stunned silence. Verdict for the defense. Madison, numb, listened as the clerk declared Olivia Beckett failed to meet burden of proof. Damages, 0. Chelsea's telephoto masterpiece lost potency. Olivia's attorney spanking on settlement stirred hollow-eyed. Outside, protesters dispersed, signs littering rain-soaked pavement. Yet victory tasted metallic. Medical board investigators still probed Madison's illicit propofol buy. Felony charges loomed. She revealed the truth only to her attorney and Detective Nolan. The vial was for her cancer-ridden dog, Baxter, whom 3 vets refused to euthanize early due to policy, leaving Madison desperate to grant merciful sleep at home. Nolan checked vet records, confirmed Baxter's late-stage osteosarcoma, and quietly filed the context. Prosecutors, weary of bad optics after wrongful suspicion, agreed to pretrial diversion, community service, mandatory ethics course, licensed probation instead of prison. Madison accepted. Scandal simmered. Weeks later, Olivia gave exclusive interviews insisting justice miscarried, but clicks dwindled. Andrea Pike's trial captured the next news cycle. Chelsea pivoted to influencer life coaching, monetizing boundaries with betrayers. Madison retreated to a neuromodulation lab in Norway, invited by peers who valued skill over gossip. There, under Arctic light, she designed a next-gen stim with triple fail-safes, dedicated to every patient failed by fear. She mailed the first prototype to Halcyon General under Olivia's name. No note except a line from Hippocrates: cure sometimes, treat often. Comfort always. In quiet dawn, she scattered Baxter's ashes off a frost-clad fjord and finally inhaled a breath unweighted by rumored crimes. Back in Halcyon, Detective Nolan archived the Pike confession beside a police issue thumb drive containing dark web chatter showing Chelsea sold the propofol photo to tabloids for 6 figures. Ethical maybe. Legal certainly, but the ripple costed Doctor her practice. Nolan labeled the folder collateral damage, signed off, and headed home to his own daughter, who slept safe despite a world drunk on suspicion. Madison's name faded from push alerts, returning to those who cherished it for healing before scandal. She learned that a reputation can shatter in a shutter click, but resilience, like bone after fracture, grows denser at the break. Somewhere between courtroom glare and Nordic stars, she stitched herself whole, proof that even in narratives written by others, the protagonist can seize back the pen.